Thick blankets of ancient dust rested undisturbed over the heavy stone doors of the hidden sanctuary within the abandoned sword manor. Inside the quiet gloom, a faint click resonated as the wheels of an ornate wooden chair slowly began to turn. For exactly 10 long years, the legendary third young master had remained completely cut off from the tumultuous affairs of the mortal cultivation realm. With a gentle push from his pale fingers, the massive stone barriers exploded outward into millions of crystalline fragments. Sunlight washed over his pale, refined features as he rolled out into the overgrown courtyard where his family's legacy lay decaying. A young disciple named Chu stood trembling nearby, holding a battered training sword tightly against his bruised chest. Chu dropped to his knees immediately upon witnessing the sudden emergence of the legendary crippled master. Shen looked down at the young man and observed the deep, fractured channels of energy within his unpolished meridians. The master extended a single hand and commanded Chu to demonstrate the standard foundational sword stance of their ancestors. Chu leaped upward and executed a fierce horizontal strike that cut sharply through the empty afternoon air. Shen shook his head slightly, noting that the boy's posture lacked the vital celestial alignment required for true mastery. The crippled master reached out and tapped a fallen pine needle with his slender finger, infusing it with an invisible pressure. Instantly, the tiny pine needle shot forward like a cosmic comet, neatly cleaving a massive boulder in the distance into two perfect halves. Chu stared at the perfectly smooth, bisected stone surfaces in utter disbelief, his mouth wide open in amazement. Shen explained that true power does not reside in the physical weapon, but in the absolute concentration of one's intent. For the next 3 hours, the master revealed hidden pathways within the human body that bypassed standard physical limitations completely. Chu groaned aloud as the dormant energy centers inside his spine were forcibly unlocked by Shen's gentle guidance. A tremendous pillar of golden light suddenly shot into the heavens from Chu's body, signaling his breakthrough to the earth realm. Shen smiled softly at the boy's newfound strength, knowing that the peace they enjoyed would be short-lived. Sudden dark clouds rolled heavily across the sky, completely blotting out the stars as an oppressive pressure descended upon the manor. The main wooden gates of the manor were blown to splinters as 9 powerful figures floated down from the storm. These 9 rival heavenly masters wore matching ceremonial robes adorned with fierce silver insignias of the tyrannical Sky Alliance. The leader of the group stepped forward and demanded that the abandoned sword manor surrender all remaining ancestral lands immediately. Chu stepped in front of his master's wheelchair, desperately trying to shield the crippled lord with his newly refined aura. The 9 heavenly masters laughed mockingly, viewing the crippled young master and the single boy as utterly insignificant insects. Shen merely patted Chu's shoulder gently, indicating that the young disciple should step back and watch carefully. The crippled master rolled himself forward a few paces until he faced the overwhelming combined might of the 9 elites alone. Insulted by his casual demeanor, 3 of the masters drew their glowing spiritual sabers and charged forward simultaneously. Shen did not even lift his arms, he simply exhaled a soft breath that condensed into an impenetrable barrier of blue light. The moment the enemy blades touched the sapphire dome, they shattered instantly into harmless dust. The 3 attacking masters were thrown backward violently, coughing up blood as their own deflected force rebounded onto them. The remaining 6 heavenly masters realized the danger and immediately joined hands to form a forbidden grand killing formation. A gigantic ethereal sword made of condensed crimson blood essence materialized in the stormy sky directly above the manor. Facing a strike that could flatten an entire mountain range, Shen slowly raised his index finger toward the colossal weapon. With a soft flick, a thin beam of concentrated sword chi shot upward, piercing directly through the center of the giant crimson blade. The grand forbidden formation exploded into absolute nothingness, sending a devastating shockwave that leveled the surrounding mountain ridges. All 9 heavenly masters collapsed onto the shattered ground, their cultivation foundations completely broken by the casual counterattack. Shen looked at the trembling survivors and quietly warned them never to step foot within the boundaries of his manor again. The defeated elites scrambled away in absolute panic, leaving behind a profound silence that blanketed the entire estate. As Shen looked up at the night sky, his eyes locked onto the glowing full moon, sensing an ancient, artificial restriction built into its very light. Realizing that this lunar seal was actively suppressing the true cultivation potential of the entire mortal realm, he slowly raised his hand once more. Without a moment's hesitation, Shen unleashed a colossal, world-spanning trajectory of pure sword force aimed directly at the celestial body. High above the earth, the massive beam impacted the lunar surface, causing the ancient glowing seal lines to fracture and snap with deafening cosmic thunder. With a final, echoing cosmic roar, the entire moon literally shattered into 1,000 glowing fragments, completely altering the sky forever. As the lunar dust settled, a massive, hidden golden rift slowly ripped open in the deep void where the moon once stood, revealing a terrifying glimpse of a higher, hostile upper realm. The golden rift in the void pulsed violently, casting an ethereal, blinding light across the devastated landscape of the abandoned Sword Manor. Young Master Shen looked up at the cosmic tear, his face remaining entirely expressionless as his long black hair whipped in the rising wind. With a gentle brush of his slender fingers against the wooden armrest, he anchored his chaotic surroundings using a fraction of his hidden soul pressure. The heavy cosmic pressure descending from the upper realm instantly dissolved into thin air before it could harm his trembling disciples. Far beyond the borders of the manor, the sudden exposure of the higher planes sent shockwaves through every major cultivation sect in the region. Within the grand hall of the prestigious Purple Flame sect, spiritual elders gathered in a panic frenzy to discuss the anomaly. Elder Han stroked his white beard, staring intently at the shifting stellar maps that now detailed completely unknown celestial coordinates. Realizing the immense value of this new cosmic gateway, the elder immediately resolved to seek out the mysterious master who had shattered the sky. Meanwhile, Shen sat quietly in his private study, seamlessly translating an ancient supreme technique onto a simple piece of parchment. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed outside the manor gates as the delegation from the Purple Flame sect arrived in a flash of light. Shen rolled up the freshly written scroll with deliberation and signaled for his disciple to guide the visitors inside. Elder Han stepped into the reception room, his eyes immediately landing on the seemingly helpless youth resting in the wheelchair. The elder demanded to know the identity of the hidden powerhouse responsible for altering the laws of the universe. Shen merely offered a subtle smile, lifting a delicate porcelain teacup to his lips without uttering a single word. Offended by this blatant display of disrespect, Elder Han released a wave of scorching purple flame energy to intimidate the youth. The roaring flames frozen instantly mid-air, hardening into harmless shards of violet glass before shattering into dust. Gasping for breath as his own cultivation technique was effortlessly suppressed, Elder Han staggered back 3 full steps. Shen gently tossed the newly written scroll across the low table, letting it slide smoothly to a stop right before the trembling elder. He calmly explained that this manual contained a modified cultivation path capable of bypassing the newly exposed upper realm restrictions. Elder Han carefully unrolled a fraction of the scroll, his eyes widening exponentially as he recognized the profound truths written within. In exchange for this supreme manual, Shen demanded absolute political non-interference and rare spiritual herbs from the Purple Flame stores. Grateful yet deeply terrified of the young master's unfathomable background, Elder Han bowed low and accepted the terms immediately. However, as the Purple Flame delegation departed, a sinister group of scouts from the rival Bayou sect watched from the dense bamboo forest. Grand Master Viper of the Bayou sect received their report, his face twisting into a malicious grin at the prospect of stealing a supreme treasure. Believing Shen to be nothing more than a frail scribe backed by fleeting luck, Viper ordered an immediate nighttime raid to seize the manor. Night fell quickly once more, draping the abandoned Sword Manor in a deceptive silent tranquility. Dozens of dark green figures slipped over the high walls, their movements entirely masked by poisonous, sound-dampening mist. Sitting alone in the center of the dark courtyard, Shen was already waiting for them, his hands resting peacefully in his lap. Grand Master Viper stepped forward from the shadows, his emerald staff scraping loudly against the stone pavers. He demanded that Shen hand over all copies of the Supreme Manual, or watch his entire lineage burn to ashes. Shen lightly sighed, shaking his head gently at the sheer predictability of low-tier sect masters. With a simple, elegant flick of his right index finger, Shen activated a massive, hidden sword formation buried deep within the earth. Instantly, thousands of glowing blue sword trajectories erupted from the ground, piercing straight through the night sky. The Bayou sect assassins were instantly frozen in place, their weapons shattering into a million pieces under the sheer density of the aura. Grandmaster Viper fell to his knees, his prized emerald staff snapping cleanly in half as the overwhelming gravity crushed his core. Shen rolled forward slowly, the wheels of his chair tracking smoothly through the radiant, swirling blue energy. Looking down at the defeated intruder, Shen coolly stated that the Bayou sect would now serve as the outer guardians of his manor. To enforce this absolute command, he planted a subtle sword chi seed directly into Viper's spiritual dantian with a single tap of his finger. Realizing his life was now permanently bound to the whims of this monstrous master, Viper bowed his head in complete, agonizing submission. Just as the threat subsided, the golden rift in the sky suddenly flared with a dark crimson hue, releasing a long blood-red scroll that drifted straight down into Shen's open hand. Shen unrolled the blood-red scroll with a single flick of his wrist as the crimson glow illuminated his face. The written characters on the parchment shifted violently, forming a distress message from the deepest ocean trench. An ancient seal belonging to the Dragon Emperor mansion pulsed weakly at the bottom of the message. Shen closed his eyes briefly to trace the dimensional coordinates hidden within the fading energy. With a soft sigh, he channeled a fraction of his spiritual sense into the wheels of his wooden chair. A massive circle of azure sword intent erupted beneath him, tearing open the fabric of space itself. In the blink of an eye, the young master vanished into the spatial rift, leaving only a trace of cold mist behind. Far beneath the eastern ocean, the grand gates of the Dragon Emperor mansion were cracking under immense pressure. Black abyssal energy seeped through the stone fractures, poisoning the surrounding marine life instantly. Princess Longer swung her damaged polearm to deflect a wave of corrupted sea serpents. Her breathing was heavy as bloodline corruption manifested as dark spots on her silver horns. A colossal abyssal kraken emerged from the shadows, its tentacles covered in glowing demonic eyes. Longer raised her weapon one last time, knowing her remaining spiritual energy was completely spent. Suddenly, the water pressure stabilized completely as a bright blue sphere of light cut through the dark tide. Sitting calmly within the dry air of the barrier, Shen descended gracefully to the ocean floor. The princess stared in absolute disbelief at the sight of a mortal man sitting in a wheelchair beneath the sea. The giant kraken roared underwater, sending sound waves that shattered nearby coral reefs. Shen did not even look up as he raised a single index finger toward the approaching leviathan. A single beam of condensed sword light shot forward, parting the ocean water for miles. The massive kraken was instantly bisected, its dark form dissolving into harmless bubbles before it could react. Longer watched the remnants of the ancient beast disappear, her heart pounding with profound reverence. Shen glided forward until his wheelchair came to a stop right in front of the injured princess. He noticed the dark corruption traveling up her neck and reached out to touch her forehead. Longer gasped as a surge of pure, unadulterated sword energy flooded her ancient dragon lineage. The dark spots on her silver horns shattered like glass, restoring her royal bloodline to absolute purity. She bowed her head deeply until it touched the ocean floor, pledging her eternal loyalty to her savior. Shen spoke softly, telling her that the real threat to her mansion was still approaching from the cosmic sky. He ordered her to stand up and take hold of her damaged polearm once again. Shen promised to teach her the hidden nine-fold dragon wave combat style to defend her realm. For hours, the princess practiced the intricate forms under the young master's critical gaze. Every time her stance wavered by a millimeter, a tiny spark of Shen's intent corrected her form forcefully. By the dawn of the next day, her weapon control had reached a level she never thought possible. Suddenly, the peaceful training atmosphere shattered as the water temperature dropped below freezing. A massive contingent of celestial messengers descended from the surface, clad in shining silver armor. The leading messenger declared that the Dragon Emperor mansion was guilty of harboring a cosmic outlaw. Longer stepped forward, her new dragon style swirling around her weapon like a localized hurricane. With a powerful leap, she engaged the first wave of messengers, completely overwhelming them with her raw speed. Shen watched his student dominate the battlefield, knowing his training had been a complete success. However, the leader of the Celestial Messengers pulled out an imperial token stamped with the emblem of the 12 Swords Pavilion. As the token activated, a massive projection of a world-spanning hunt warrant materialized, displaying Shen's exact face across the entire ocean realm. The massive projection of the global hunt warrant continued to flicker over the ocean waves, bathing the entire coastline in an ominous crimson light. Looking up at the massive warrant from his wheelchair, young Master Shen merely smiled, his long dark hair dancing softly in the rising gale. Suddenly, the clouds split open as dozens of armored warships belonging to the 12 Swords Pavilion emerged from the heavenly void. Thousands of elite pavilion cultivators instantly descended from the decks, their drawn blades humming with high-frequency golden energy. Step forward, Chu, and demonstrate the absolute limits of the heavy iron style I bestowed upon you during your seclusion. With a thunderous roar, Disciple Chu slammed his massive blade into the earth, fracturing the entire cliffside into thousands of floating boulders. The first wave of pavilion attackers rushed into the floating debris field, attempting to encircle the lone young warrior from all sides. Keep your stance low, sweep 30 degrees to the left, and let the weight of the mountain guide your swing. Chu executed the precise movement instantly, generating a massive crescent wave of emerald force that shattered the front line of enemies. Seeing their vanguard obliterated, a group of 5 pavilion elders formed a complex pentagonal array to trap Chu within a localized gravity field. Ao used the rising tides to disrupt their spatial coordination and shatter the base of their formation. Princess Ao leaped high into the air, summoning a colossal water dragon from the ocean depths that spiraled directly into the elders' array. The watery construct collided with the purple gravity field, causing a massive elemental explosion that scattered the elders across the sky. Taking advantage of the distraction, Chu vaulted off a floating rock and slammed his fist directly into the chest of the lead elder. The barrier disintegrated instantly, sending the elder crashing down into the shallow shoreline like a meteor. Annoyed by the resistance, the flagship of the 12 Swords Pavilion deployed its secondary battery, aiming hundreds of spiritual cannons at the cliff. The surrounding air grew incredibly heavy as the destructive energy reached its peak, threatening to turn the entire region to ash. There is no need to panic, for a true master utilizes the opponent's own velocity to dismantle their grandest designs. As all hundreds of cannons fired at once, Shen casually swiped his hand through the air, drawing a massive celestial diagram in the sky. The massive network of red lasers hit the diagram, warped instantly around its geometric curves, and reflected straight back at the warships. Multiple secondary vessels exploded into magnificent balls of fire, their flaming debris raining down into the ocean below. From the burning remnants of the primary flagship, a towering figure surrounded by 12 floating weapons slowly levitated downward. To think a mere cripple and his mediocre students could withstand the vanguard of my imperial army is an insult to my name. Chu and Ao instantly moved to intercept him, but a casual wave of Ji's hand sent 3 floating swords flying forward at light speed. The incredible physical pressure of the incoming weapons forced both disciples backward, their boots carving deep trenches into the solid stone. You are nothing but insects fighting against the inevitable tide of imperial unification, and your lives end here. It is truly amusing how those with a little power always mistake their small pond for the entire boundless ocean. Slowly, young Master Shen stood up from his wheelchair for the first time in centuries, his legs perfectly straight and steady. Supreme Master Ji's eyes widened in sheer terror as he felt the gravity of the entire world shift, his giant energy blade instantly fracturing. You seek the master of the abandoned sword manor, yet you fail to recognize the very sovereign who shattered the boundaries of the heavens. The 12 floating swords belonging to Ji began to vibrate violently before snapping in half one by one under the sheer weight of Shen's presence. With a single casual flick of his wrist, Shen unleashed a boundless wave of primordial sword intent that completely swept over the remaining Imperial fleet. The absolute silence that followed was deafening as every single weapon, warship, and aggressive formation vanished into nothingness. Supreme Master Ji fell to his knees, his hands trembling violently as he realized the absolute futility of his entire existence before this godlike entity. Return to your pavilion, dissolve your armies, and never let your shadow darken this region again. I obey the commands of the true immortal ancestor, and swear by my soul to never return, Ji stammered before vanishing into a cloud of mist. Chu and Ao walked forward and bowed deeply toward their master, their hearts filled with ultimate reverence and newfound clarity. Turning back around, young Master Shen calmly sat down in his wooden wheelchair once more, the massive cosmic aura instantly fading back into his body. The age of conflict has ended, and the true balance of the mortal and upper realms has finally been restored under the banner of our manor. With his identity revealed and his legacy permanently secured across multiple worlds, the peerless swordmaster closed his eyes, content to enjoy the quiet serenity of his eternal domain.